Over the past week, I've been playing Visions of Mana, the first completely new entry into Square Enix's long-running series in 15 years. I've been curious to check out the Mana series for a while now, so Visions is my first hoorah into this world. And as a first step into this series, I have to say I'm completely taken back and sort of feel stupid for not playing the games earlier, because through finishing Visions, I can tell you, this game is simply fantastic. Visions chucks us into the fantasy boots of young Val, a soul guard whose job it is to protect and guide the elemental alms, people who are vessels that have been chosen by the elemental spirits, to the mana tree to avoid the world from being thrown into chaos. This adventure is your typical JRPG affair, journeying across a vast world, recruiting the alms to your party, slaying foul monsters and beasts. It's a charming trip from start to finish with a really great cast of colourful characters. We have Katana Cat, Dragon Girl, Dog, not playable but very important princess-esque character. Bunny Guy, would marry a book if he could. The Pussycat Dolls, Jack and the Beanstalk. It looks like it's time to goon. Christopher Walken?
This little beauty will solve all your problems, and if it doesn't, no returns or refunds.
I especially like the main protagonist, Val. He's quickly become a new favorite Square Enix character of mine. The story does start a little slow, but quickly picks up about halfway through with plenty of twists, where you're left wanting to progress and play just a little bit more to find out what happens next. I honestly didn't expect this game's story to chokehold me the way it did, but I'll be damned, I was actually hooked. There's all of those classic JRPG story tropes you've come to know, and the story doesn't necessarily do anything wildly different or brave, but it's a narrative that's well pieced together. My only complaint here with the story is the voice acting. In parts, it can be a little bit cringe. The VA of the main cast is great, but it's clear that they got one person to do multiple voices for the minor characters.
Unfortunate news. The ferry has not yet arrived to name the all.
Oh.
I fear that without Karina, the ferry may not come at all.
Huh? It's as if Grandpa never went through puberty. The good thing about the Mana series for newcomers is that each of the games are not directly connected in narrative. Each game is its own self-contained story, so while there will be references, I'm sure, throughout Visions that of course I can't pick up on, there's no requirement in playing any of the other Mana games in order to understand what's going on here in Visions. The game's world and visuals, though, is one of its strongest points here, because slap me with a 26-pound Canadian mountain salmon, this game is dripping with charm and oozing gorgeousness. Okay, yeah, in 2024 we're drowning in games that use the colorful, high-fidelity anime aesthetic, but out of all of them, Visions shines the brightest. I mean, look at this. Are you looking at this? It's like fairy bread, bro. It's magical. The grass, the trees, the water, the mountains, the vines, the sky, I want to put it all in food form and swallow it. There's a large variety in biomes you get to explore. While this game isn't technically open world, it's open area, and some of these areas are fairly big. There's lush grassy plains, snowy mountains, windy valleys, dry deserts, fantasy villages, and a gorgeous city, dense jungles, and whatever this place is. Yeah, I could see myself getting buried here, right on top of a mountain, underneath the moonlight, a decrepit-looking, sort of Dark Souls-esque village down there, down the bottom. But it's tranquil, man. This is nothing but aesthetic. These areas are packed with groups of enemies, elite enemies, skill point nodes, chests, side quests, the general gameplay loop of discovering a new area and making sure to explore the entire area before then progressing is super satisfying. There's also a lot of stuff you'll come across that you won't be able to access initially until later on in the game once you have a specific elemental vessel, a tool that can be used to traverse parts of the environment, leading to new discoveries. These all work differently. One will have you traveling on a rocket, whereas another will allow you to float in a bubble, adding some additional flavor to how the devs approached the level design. These same tools can be used to access combat challenges throughout the world known as lesser areas. There are a ton of these scattered throughout the world of the game, and they pit you against a group of enemies that you'll need to defeat in a time limit. Once completing all of the lesser areas for one specific element, you can then gain access to this very large looking tower that gives you access to an even harder combat challenge. Exploring this world though is fun. It's just pure fun. You sit there completely zombified, holding your controller, mind numb, enveloped in this fantasy world, collecting maple syrup. Oh, that's another thing too. This rat, okay, it's not a rat. I was told when I covered the demo, this is actually a bear. Most interesting looking bear I've ever seen. This guy here is addicted to the syrup.
Wow!
This syrup, for whatever reason, is floating all around the world. This is basically this world's version of precursor orbs. They're just everywhere for whatever reason. The dud bear will give you good items in return for syrup. Most importantly, stat increase serums. So collecting this floating, sticky substance is actually progression towards your party. Also, shout out to the dud bear. This guy is ridiculous, man. I don't know what he's saying half the time. He has provided me with a dictionary that I can study out so that I know exactly what he's saying. To me, though, it's nothing but gibberish, but I respect this guy for mastering the art form of gibberish. The f this guy just say to me? On top of the grizzly syrup, you'll also be mindlessly running around the areas, collecting shining items that are scattered on the ground. Most of the time these are usable items, or gold, but sometimes you can pick up golden clovers. Just like the elementite nodes that you'll find scattered in areas, these too can also be used as skill points to further strengthen your characters. Literally everything you're doing here in Visions feels meaningful. You'll often be returning to these areas, as well as a lot of the content can't be accessed until you've acquired a specific elemental vessel, along with also strong enemies being found throughout, as well as ruins that just shouldn't be taken on until about the end portion of the game. You can return to any previously explored area at any point in the game. It's up to you if you want to progress with the main story or simply just go off the beaten path, explore, finish up areas, or do side quests. And traversing this world quickly is basically the same way that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth uses its travel system. We can jump on this turtle guy right here and boat around the entire world, quickly getting from one part of the world to another, the same way that 7 Rebirth did it with the Bronco. And I think overall, if you enjoy the gameplay found in 7 Rebirth, then you'll probably find yourself really enjoying Visions as well, as there's quite a few similarities between the two games. I'm pretty convinced that the devs that worked on Visions of Mana took notes from the different things that 7 Rebirth did with its open world setup and combat system. So let's talk about the game's combat system. Visions of Mana is an action RPG, but it's an action RPG that's in the traditional sense, putting RPG first and action second. For enjoyers of the Tales series or this year's Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, you'll feel right at home here, with a deep emphasis of RPG elements of being able to build your party to almost the exact spec you want. There's 5 playable characters with a party setup of 3. The game has a ton of different classes that are linked to the elemental vessel you equipped on a character, and each vessel will provide a totally different class and set of active and passive skills to unlock with each character, along with even a unique outfit. Depending on what vessel a character has equipped will determine their class, strike, special attack, and ultimate move. While the passive skills you unlock in the tree are unique to the class, you do permanently keep any active skills acquired, allowing players to further customize how they want their class to be set up. There's also ability seeds you can equip that can be found, purchased, or redeemed for materials that pretty much work the same way as Materia does in FF7. They can provide passive bonuses or allow a character to use a specific magic or attack. So even if a character might lean towards being a melee user, you could build them into being a spellcaster. There really is a lot of freedom over how you build your party. What's even better about this is once you max out a vessel's tree, you then unlock all of the passive abilities from that specific vessel that can then be equipped on a character's base class, allowing you to mix and match various class passives, effectively creating a custom class of your choosing. The gearing system is pretty basic. You've got a simple piece of armor and a weapon. Over the various classes that each character has, depending on what vessel they're using, each of these classes will use a different weapon, with each character having 3 different weapon types. The combat system though is really good, though don't go into this expecting Kingdom Hearts levels of real-time combat or a hack and slash setup. It definitely leans more towards FF7 Remake or Rebirth, or of course the Tales games. There's basic light and heavy attacks with some combo upgrades that can be unlocked through the vessel tree. The dodging here feels really good, along with the game allowing animation cancelling via dodging. My one gripe though with the combat system is definitely the lock-on system. The camera is slow and struggles to keep a decent angle on the enemy you're locked onto, so hopefully this is something that gets fixed. And also, lock-on switching is incredibly sensitive, which makes it super frustrating to switch targets, and I'd be switching between like multiple targets with one push of the analog stick. I did play on PC with an Xbox controller, so it's possible that this could just be a PC issue. It took me 21 hours to finish the game's story. There's a ton of post-game content though, like cleaning up the content of the areas that requires you to be of a high level. There's more side quests that unlock, a secret boss, and even an additional story chapter. Right now, I'm about 30 hours in, so I can only assume that to see and do everything, you're likely looking at about 40 to 50 hours worth of goodness. The game even has a New Game Plus mode, as well as an extreme mode difficulty once you finish the game up for the first time. I really like Visions of Mana. I would go as far as to say that this is probably the biggest video game surprise of me for 2024. I just wasn't expecting to enjoy this as much as I did. I highly recommend this to anyone that's looking for a very well put together action RPG. I'm thrilled that Mana fans are finally eating and getting a totally new entry into the series after almost 2 entire decades. A big shout out to Square Enix for providing me with a review copy of the game, though keep in mind I was not held hostage and held at sword point. All opinions and thoughts towards this game are my own. Thank you guys so much for tuning into today's video. Be sure to subscribe to the channel to keep up with all the grooviness going on here. Check out my other social media platforms. A big thank you to my wonderful Turkey-tastic patrons. I hope each and every one of you guys are having a fantastic day, and we'll talk real soon.